After 15 years of radio silence, Prince of Persia is finally making its return to the spotlight with not just one or two, but 3 different games. We just got a fantastic entry with Lost Crown earlier this year, which ended up being one of my favorite Metroidvanias of all time, and then there is the much delayed Sands of Time Remake in development, hopefully coming out in 2026. But today we are looking at what I consider to be the most interesting entry in the franchise, the Rogue Prince of Persia. The news that Ubisoft gave the license to an external team, the co-developers of Dead Cells, Evil Empire, to develop a roguelike Prince of Persia game and launch it in early access was shocking. It feels like a very un-Ubisoft-like move, but exciting nonetheless. And the game has large shoes to fill, not only because Lost Crown nailed the 2D platforming and combat, but also with Dead Cells being one of the most celebrated roguelikes in the industry. As I mentioned earlier, the Rogue Prince of Persia is currently in early access with only one major update under its belt, so this won't be a definitive review of the game, just my early impressions of what is in the game currently and how I see its future. In Rogue Prince of Persia, you play as an unnamed prince returning to Persia to find it overtaken by Huns and their shamans. Every time the prince dies while trying to reach the city, time reverses and he wakes up at an oasis ready to try again. It's a nice way to tie together the franchise's core theme of time and this new roguelite approach. Outside of the main goal of reaching the city's palace, there are side stories for you to discover and piece together. These are presented in a nice mind map style, which is filled by finding persons and objects of interest. The game is currently very light on these stories, and even the main story just cuts off at a certain point, but I can definitely see where they are going with these ideas. Not that it really matters all that much, because the gameplay and the gameplay loop is what matters the most. Each run of Rogue Prince of Persia starts at the oasis, where you can spend currency to unlock new weapons as you find blueprints, or new trinkets adding different effects and bonuses to your existing kit. The trinkets are the coolest system in the game, as not only do you have limited amount of slots, each trinket can power up the other trinkets depending on where you place them, so it becomes a fun little problem for you to solve to get most out of them. The newest update also added more traditional meta progression, allowing you to buy more health potions, helping you retain currency after death, and other benefits. When you are done with the oasis, it's time to head out. You fight your way through enemies and parkour across multiple biomes, trying to get further and further with each run. Similar to Dead Cells, sometimes you have options of which biome you want to go through, adding variety to each run. Some biomes might have different set of enemies that you face, different NPCs for you to meet, and certain areas have their own little gimmicks like reaching levers to open a door to progress. I love how distinct each biome feels with visuals and different music tracks. As you explore the biomes, you can find shops and treasure chests to get new trinkets and higher tier weapons. You have your choice from a variety of different main weapons, all with their own feel and special attacks. You also have a ranged weapon, which currently is just a basic bow or a boomerang style sickle. Rounding out the combat are a powerful down smash and kick, both of which are highly effective, especially against shielded enemies. The combat against normal enemies is simple fun, and some of the trinket bonuses add some extra flair to it. The game currently has 2 main bosses, which were fun fights. They both have that satisfying difficulty curve where for the first couple attempts you feel like you are doing nothing, and then it just clicks. Combat overall flows nicely with the game's platforming. I was a bit surprised that there was no genre staples like double jumps or dashing, but the game does not need it with its fantastic wall running and climbing. Wall running works surprisingly well in a 2D platforming. I'm sure there are other games that have done it before, but this game just nails the idea of stringing together wall runs and jumps. It's not perfect, there are moments when the jumping feels a little bit off, like it could use a little more momentum, but the moments of brilliance in special platforming challenges does outshine the slight jankiness. The platforming traps were a bit lackluster, but the new update added a new biome that really nicely pumped up the difficulty with platforming, which I appreciated. Overall, the Rogue Prince of Persia is coming along very nicely. It's still very rough around the edges and lacks content, so unless you're really into platformers and roguelites, I would wait until it's closer to its 1.0 release. And like with any early access, you have to know what you're getting into. I'm usually a bit 50-50 on early access. I know it's hugely beneficial for developers, so I like to jump in every now and then, especially in games like these where I don't really care for the narrative side. I'm excited to see how the game evolves during its early access period and what the developers are cooking. So far there has been weekly smaller updates and tweaks and one major update with a lot of transparency from the devs, which is appreciated. The Rogue Prince of Persia has all the building pieces to take its place among the greats, but will it come together? We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found the video interesting. I normally only like to do reviews of completed products, but this game just intrigued me enough to put my thoughts in this form. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. Thank you and have a great day.